Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and a man rapidly running out of storage space. It's too late. Random review is about to begin.
Before we begin, thank you very much to Carrot Gaming for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for the contribution. Thank you for helping to keep this channel kicking and the daily content grinding, because the grind doesn't stop grinding. If you would like to pitch in yourself, the description is in the link below. I do offer some benefits like extra access, some previews, as well as access to a Discord server that only patrons get to experience. So thank you very much to everyone who pitches in and keeps the channel going. You mean the world to me. Seriously. All right. I said I was going to cap off the year with a bunch of reviews of a bunch of the new toys that have come out, and we're going to be starting with Reactivate Optimus Prime. If you've been watching the news roundups, you will know I've been really excited to see how this toy turned out because it looked pretty fantastic. So now we're going to take a closer look at it and see for ourselves how it went. As you can see, traditional 6-wheeled semi-truck, blue in the back, red in the front. Yeah, I don't even think you have to be a Transformer collector at this point to just know that's Optimus Prime. Like, that is absolutely Optimus Prime. It's pop culture at this point. And a pretty solid looking one, too. Can I just, like, tour around here and just say, like, how nice the overall silhouette is? I mean, it's a big, heavy truck, but it's not his traditional, like, squared off stylings. There's a lot of style and personality to this one. Because it's supposed to be a post-apocalyptic setting in the Reactivate video game. And the bots themselves are supposed to look like they've been pieced back together. So you've got all these little silver panels across this figure with it look like patchwork repair jobs. You've got a lot of little panels sculpted in, a lot of extra grooves and layers. He looks really, really good this way. I mean, he looks like he has been thrown back together. And yeah, it works for me. And then we go into the back, and I'm already happy with what I can find back here. For starters, he doesn't have feet sticking out the back of him. That already does me so many things. That already does so many wonders for me. So they've actually let the legs have some transformation instead of just clipping together and sticking out the back. The feet have become this extra engine. Okay, admittedly, I'm not sure what it's supposed to look like, but it doesn't look like feet. It looks like an extra part of his components, which he does have quite a few back here. And then the rear section is actually pretty solid. What I like about the feet transforming into this means you also cover up most of that gap that the thighs tend to create when Prime's legs just clip together in order to go into vehicle mode. So you've solved two birds with one stone here, and I really think this needs to be what they think about doing for Optimus Prime more often. Maybe a more classic one would, kind of like fold these feet down and make it a little bit more squared off and a little bit flatter. But you know what? For the Reactivate Prime, and something that has to be kind of futuristic-y, this works really, really well. What I also like is the fact that bumper is huge, heavy, and very scuffed. It looks like he's been running through a wasteland. This is battle damage done right, because it's a part that makes sense for that scuffing to be on, and it doesn't, and it looks, inconsistent. It looks asymmetrical. Well, it is asymmetrical. So it actually makes sense, It looks good. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with the colors too. The blue's a little bit darker than normal, but otherwise traditional Optimus Prime, silvers, grays, blues, reds all over. You got the Autobot symbols there on the sides on what will be his shoulders. Smokestacks have been painted silver. All of this looking very, very nice. Can we talk about the logic of just having the Matrix right there hanging out your front windshield? Number one, I'm going to advertise to the world where the Matrix is, but also I'm gonna hide it behind my most fragile component. Oh, and like, don't give me like space age Cybertronian glass or anything. You know as well as I have, if Optimus Prime is busted up in the cartoon or in some comic books especially, the windshield is the first thing broken. So yeah, it looks good. Like, they actually went pretty good on the detailing here, both in sculpt and in paint. He looks very, very nice. I'm going to take the weapons off of the sides. You can peg him in reverse, but the gun will stick out this direction, which looks super weird. There's no covert way of storing the weapons. They're just there on the side of the rear. But without it, yeah, it's actually a pretty clean looking alt mode. Yep, and it rolls well. It's got the silver on the hubs, so that's always nice to see. Looking really, really good. All right, we got to transform him now because he does take a bit. There are quite a few steps to him, and he's definitely one of those where if you don't transform him in the right way, then you will cause yourself a headache. So it's one I definitely recommend having the instructions on hand the first few times you do it. And admittedly, as I begin transforming it now by trying to open up the little panels here to get the wind vane off, like so, I will let you know I'm still not great at this transformation. So bear with me a little bit. Go ahead and fold that down so that's all nice and compact. Go ahead and unclip the front from the bumper. It'll swing up like that, opening up where the arms are going to come from. Arms will have to swing out a little bit diagonally just to kind of get them out like so. It's a little bit awkward because you got to move the bicep and the shoulder at the same time, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad once you get a handle on it. All right, so with that stuff out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and close up the torso. This is where we get a little bit of Earthrise Optimus Prime in him, where all this kind of folds up, and that will become his chest once we're ready to merge everything together. I'm going to go ahead and unclip the bumper as well. From here, it's just a lot of unclipping to get things unseated. These little grills pop out from the side there. Mine is just bent. It's a very thin piece, so that might be a thing on yours as well. Doesn't seem to affect anything except aesthetically, so at the very least, it's not harming the engineering to be like that. All right, so I'm going to raise this up a little bit so I have clearance to get his head up and out of the way. Transform that section into place. With that done, I can now take the wheels, rotate them into his torso, and close that down. That's going to give me the room to bring all of this over. The belly section is going to tab into 2 slots on the belly and then into the hinge on top. Now, unfortunately on mine, once I start like cobbling a lot of the other stuff together, the chest on mine doesn't like to stay in this spot, so it's going to expose a little bit of the gap. I don't know if that's the same on all of them, but it's just something to keep in mind. Again, doesn't hurt anything, it's just aesthetic. All right, going to get this section out of the way so we can start focusing on the legs themselves. Separate them out like so and open up these panels. And then we need to get the feet folded like so everything is nice and clear to make the leg rotation. Flip that out, close that down. When's the last time you saw an Optimus with a leg flip in his transform? Like, that is such a nice little addition. Go ahead and close those up. Adjust the feet as you like. That's going to finish that off. And now it's pretty much just closing panels up. Let's go ahead and extend these arms out. And these are easy fold. 1, 2. Close it together nice and tight. 1, 2. Rotate those around so the elbow is forward. Hands go 180 degrees. Oh, that one didn't need it. Oh, hang on. Add that backwards. All right, there we go. The instructions don't tell you to rotate the fist, but I find the vehicle mode goes together just a little bit more cleanly if you do. So that's an optional thing for you. And now for this, I'm going to fold these little side panels in like so. They will tab into these little gaps here in the back. And that's going to start forming up our backpack. Go ahead. It's where we start kind of mashing a lot of thin parts together, but don't worry, should come together just fine. Fold that wind vane down. Fold it into the back. That too will have 2 tabs on those little thin extensions that it's going to peg into. And that is going to be the transformation into the robot mode. There's a little bit of DNA from Earthrise Optimus Prime in there, especially in how that torso transforms, but for the most part, it's a pretty fresh transformation for Optimus Prime. It works really, really well. It's a fun figure to actually transform. You can see where a lot of the traditional elements are there, but they have their own twists, and I really, really like how it came together. And speaking of coming together, look at this unit of a Prime. Now, from a straight-on angle like I'm giving you right now, you can see a lot of that kibble in the back, so the silhouette's a little bit off. If I give him just even a little bit of an angle, you start to see the shape in the midsection. Even that makes him look a lot better. In person, when you actually have depth perception to work with, he looks magnificent. It's an extremely well-cast Optimus Prime. Really like the proportions on him. He has a beef to him. He has like a wide shoulder, strong silhouette. Really, really good looking Optimus Prime. Speaking of, we'll go ahead and take a look at the head, which is something of its own beast. Now, again, like a lot of the stuff for Reactivate, it's doing its own thing. It's got a sharper, more futuristic sculpt to it. For me, the only thing is, can I show you, can I get it to focus in? Those eyes are so small. Like, if you don't have light going directly into his face, it's very easy to not notice those eyes in the least. It makes me wish that they had gone like with the toy accurate yellow eyes so they'd stand out better. Or, oh, I don't know, just sculpt larger eyes to begin with. It might be the one downside I really have to this toy. Yeah, the head sculpt looks great. Those eyes are just way too tiny, which is weird and distracting, but hey, we work with what we got. It's still really, really nice what we're getting here. So, of course, in robot mode, he holds to most of the traditional components. As you can see, he's got everything in the correct position. Most of the colors from the vehicle mode have made it over to the robot. We get better look now, thanks to things like the vents on the legs being painted. We get some better color separation, which is nice. Missing a little bit of those like hits of yellow he would traditionally have, but not a huge miss. Everything else brings the vehicle modes deco together really, really well for the robot. It looks pretty bang on. Really happy with how this Prime turned out. Meanwhile, speaking of that, look at that. So yeah, he's got some panels that have to fold up to his back. Most Transformers these days do, but look, that's actually pretty clean. It's pretty clean, and it's not in a spot where it's going to interfere with anything, which is another really important aspect for me. He does clean up really, really nice. It's a very solid look, and as I'm turning Prime, he really doesn't have a whole lot of hollowing going on. The legs and thighs themselves are completely solid all the way around. You're going to find some hollowing on the inside of his bicep, but that's really it. You know, a lot of this is accomplished with screwed together components and pins, so he's held together pretty solidly. He feels nice and solid. Now, the issue that some have come across is pricing, because if you break down the 2-pack into one Deluxe and one Voyager, it's actually a little bit more expensive than you would expect. So we can do the fair thing and bring out the Earthrise Optimus to show the comparison. And now you kind of see it. Now you kind of see it. So he's a big Voyager. For something that is classified as a Voyager, he is big. And as we've seen, that size has not compromised the complexity of the transformation and engineering. If anything, he's more involved than the Earthrise figure is, which is kind of saying something, because Earthrise does some really cool engineering tricks. Also, I would say better proportioned. You know, you can actually see where his knees end higher up than this one, but his pelvis doesn't go as tall as this one. So you're getting a more traditional layout and a more traditional proportion out of him as well, which is, I know, a grievance some people had with the Earthrise mold. So, again, really, really good looking Optimus Prime. I'm going to go in close again so we start getting into accessories, which I normally save to the end, but this is, of course, the accessory. The doors do open up. Traditionally, there is a matrix of leadership inside. It's the same mold they've been using for years for this matrix. So no big surprise. Just throw it into the pile with all the others. Again, this is the one thing I think the Earthrise has over this is just painting on the inside of the doors and so you don't have to see the matrix in his chest all the time. Yeah, and like I said, there's that gap. There's that gap that doesn't want to quite close up on mine. Yeah, I don't know, like there's some weird part clearance issue on it or what, but it's a mileage may vary thing. Okay, as long as we're here, let's start getting into the articulation. Head, ball jointed, so up and down, left and right, all the way around. Shoulders, universal. Work really, really well. Full range of motion there, 360 degrees on the bicep. Elbows go to the 90. Wrist rotation, very tight, but it is there. Waist rotation. It clips the back of the kibble a little bit, but the kibble itself is not the most solid in that you can easily just kind of push this beyond there. So you can get plenty of range out of the waist. Universal hips. All right. At more extreme angles, it looks weird because it's bringing up part of the pelvis, but that's kind of just how they do primes these days. Thigh swivel, 360 degrees. Beyond the 90 on the knee, and then, of course, the ankle tilt as well, since that's part of the transformation. For added accessory fun, should you want to do that, you do have ports on the underside of his feet for adding any kind of weaponizer, armorizer, whatever you want. 2 holes in the back, which will also store his weaponry, which we can also go ahead and show off. So, the weapons themselves are the traditional Prime weapons. The rifle itself, very traditional in shape. A little bit of privilege with the design, but for the most part, extremely recognizable. And then the other one is his traditional Energon axe, which actually has a bit of a twist to it. So, in order to look right, you got to rotate the hand a little bit. But you can see it's not just the traditional orange. It's got a lot of black running through it as well. And the base of it, rather than just being flared energy, just is this big, ominous black chunk extending off his forearm. You do have to kind of be careful about how it's posed since it's just a clip-in weapon, but it does look good, and it's actually a more interesting design for Prime's axe than he usually gets. That's how you know like everything is super serious in the new game, because even Prime's axe has gone emo. I apologize. That's probably the wrong terminology to use, but you know what? It's the Hot Topic axe. Let's put it that way. All right. So with that, pretty much have your Reactivate Optimus Prime, and yeah, it's a pretty spectacular one. Yeah, the vehicle mode looks great. Robot mode looks really, really good, especially once you start putting some poses onto it. Cleans up well, complex but not frustrating transformation. Yeah, like this is a really strong Prime to go out on the end of the year. I hate to tell you, but between the Gamer Edition, the Reactivate, and even the Armada Prime, this is an Optimus Prime year for toys. It just is. So if you're buying the 2-pack for this, buy in confidence. You're getting a pretty large Voyager that does a lot of things right and is really fun to play with. So I'm going to move on to record the next one. So if you're still on the fence about the 2-pack, hold on. I'll let you know how the other part turned out.
We parlay with the captain.
You think a werecroc is going to listen to elvish rules of piracy?
Of course it would be the freaking elves
Cool.
that invented parlay.
I had to think of a quick replacement for the French.
Oh,